Now I would like to ask Mr. Georg Habsburg to the microphone. We were talking about the Austrian monarchy. We will see what the monarchian can tell us now. Thank you.
Ministerial Commissioner, Mr. President of the Hungarian Pan-European Movement, Mr. President of the Slovenian Pan-European Movement, dear friends, I must admit it is a very great pleasure for me to be here today at a very special moment, because I am for the moment extremely involved in participating in events that commemorate the centenary of the end of the First World War, which is of course a very important date, what happened in 1918 and what had a very big impact on Europe. But I think here this is not the issue. I think we talk here much more about what happened 30 years ago and what happened, let's say, in the nearer past and how this affects us. Because 30 years ago, we shouldn't forget that the Hungarian Pan-European Movement was founded. And this was already marking, let's say, the very clear signs that the Iron Curtain would disappear. And this marks a very kind of new chapter in the life of the European Union and of the European development. When my father joined the European Parliament in 1979, he was always trying to show to everybody that Europe is not what it has been in '79, that it is much more, that it is much bigger, and that it is much more important. He was putting an empty chair in the plenary of the European Parliament to never forget the countries that would like to join the European Union and that should join the European Union. He was making every year a speech in Hungarian.
Haben alle gewählt. Es que tous ont déjà voté. Have all voted. And todos votados. Mindenki szavazott,
to show that there are countries that belong to the European Union and that are not yet members of the European Union. And these were signs where a lot of other parliamentarians and a lot of European politicians started to smile of him and say, oh, this is not going to change. What are you doing and what are you trying to show to us? 30 years ago, it became clear that the vision my father had for the disappearance of the Iron Curtain would become true. And this led to an event which is really of a historical dimension, which happened, and we will celebrate it in a very short time, the Pan-European Picnic of 1989, which meant the first real opening of the Iron Curtain, the first possibility to, let's say, get rid of a border that was not only in a very illogical way divide Europe into East and West, but that would give the possibility for a very important structure of the European Union, Central Europe, to grow together again, to shape form, and to start working. It was a fantastic time. It was in 1989 that for me, well, my father was here already in 1988, very briefly, but in 1989, my family got the first possibility to come home as a family. After the funeral of my grandmother, late Queen Zita, in Vienna, there was a commemorative service in Budapest. Some of you were absolutely there and remember this moment where my family had the first time the possibility to come back to Hungary. And what was happening then from '89 to, let's say, '95, '96 was an incredible time, what you could experience when you lived in this country. I very quickly moved to Hungary and I started living here and started working here. And I met so many brave, courageous, intelligent, brilliant politicians, visionaries, people coming with business ideas, coming with innovative ideas, trying to open up the possibilities that were happening here in Central Europe, not only in Hungary, but in at that time still Czechoslovakia or Poland or other parts of Central Europe, to try to open up the country, to try to use the possibilities that were there and try to move the country as quick as possible forward. Also from the political side, it was clear already much before '89 that the only future for this country is inside of the European Union. It was fantastic to experience how really the Hungarian negotiating team in the European Union that negotiated our access to the European Union was led always by the same group of people. And this we tend sometimes to forget because we talk about the big political difficulties here in Hungary. It was the same team under different governments that was negotiating the accession of Hungary to the European Union. Therefore, Hungary was much better placed because they had the same people with the same information, the same background, the same experience, and the same professional knowledge that were negotiating the entry of Hungary into the European Union. Of course, we all remember times became a little bit more difficult. A lot of promises arrived when Hungary should join the European Union, and it was always, the date was coming back from 96, 98, 2000, 2002. But the most important is the success that in 2004 Hungary became full member of the European Union. And it was very positive, not only for Hungary, but also for the neighboring countries, this access and this entry in the European Union. Hungary got a lot of possibilities, a lot of positive inputs, a lot of possibilities to work for themselves and their civil servants in the European Union and to work on the development of this European Union. And this is all was a very positive time and a very successful time. Unfortunately, when you look to it from the perspective of today, we have to first see something. People tend to forget. Why do I say this? When we talk about the European Union today, we talk about Euroscepticism, migration crisis, Greece, economical crisis, banking crisis, crisis. We tend to forget what this European Union was giving to the whole continent. And it was giving a face of peace and stability. First, of course, to the Western European countries, when still, let's say, I don't like the Central and Eastern European countries had a lot of difficulties. But by joining these countries, nobody today really can imagine a new armed conflict on the soil of the European Union. This is something incredible. This is something also historically incredible to see that we are living on a secure continent in peace. And on the other side, you know, this is, let's say, a base to start thinking of this European Union. Security, and Mr. Ababela mentioned it very importantly when he said security is so important. Security is playing a very important role, and this gives a very good feeling. And this, let's say, this strength of the European Union is coming out of the base and from these founding fathers who made peace and security to the biggest, let's say, common idea that brought this European Union together. This is much more important than all the crises we are facing today. And this is the basic idea, what also the pan-European movement stands for, and to keep this together. Of course, we see now all these discussion points and the difficulties that are presented when you talk about the European Union. I spend a lot of time also in schools here in Hungary, talk with them about historical events. And for me, it is very interesting also to experience with the younger children when I talk to them about the Iron Curtain, the difficulties of the Iron Curtain. When I talk to them about what meant that the European continent was divided. For the kids in the school, this comes beside the pyramids and the Roman Empire and Napoleon and the Iron Curtain, because they travel without a passport from Budapest to Lisbon, and they are happy with it, and they know what this means. So we tend to forget. So it is a very important task to show to everybody how the situation was looking 30 years ago and where to go in the future. So try to be optimistic. European Union has succeeded to do so many things. Of course there are difficulties. And of course now, today in the European Union, there are very many difficulties, especially in the way the European Union is communicating their work, is communicating how they are working, and is communicating the successes the European Union is presenting day by day. Unfortunately, we also see, and we have next year elections to European Parliament, that elections of European Parliament are normally conquered by interior politics of a country or party politics. It should be about Europe. It should be what happened in the European Parliament. It should be about what did the countries succeed in doing the European Parliament. And there is something where I can talk about Hungary, but I think from different countries people can have the same experience. When you would make today, go to the street and ask the people in the street, who is representing you in the European Parliament? Give me names. Who are your members of European Parliament? You would see a lot of giant question marks. They could probably say one or two names. but they are not able to tell you who is representing the country in the most important institution of the European Union. This is something we have to work on. We have to see that the parliamentary elections give more visibility to what is happening in the European Parliament, to explain to the people how the European Union is working, and give more visibility to the representatives who are in the European Parliament and make them responsible. You have to approach them. You have to know who they are. You have to go to them with your questions. And if you are critical to the European Union, go to the European parliamentarians and ask for explanations what has happened and what didn't work and what should work better. And this is something that everybody can do, because by this, they feel the responsibility they are bearing. Big problem is the election system for the European Parliament, because voting for a party list is always something what political parties love, but what normally is not the best thing for parliamentarians to get visibility. If you would have, beside the vote for a political party, a preferential vote for your member of parliament that you want to support, that would give the possibility to give them more visibility and to work more and to do more. So a lot of things can be done. The Pan-European Union has an incredible work to do. They have to show how important let's say, the basic values of the European Union are, what to do to fight against this Euroscepticism, to go on with the enlargement of the European Union. And there I'm so happy that the Hungarian government is working really hard on the further enlargement of the European Union, and always was one of the most important topics to go on in the enlargement of the European Union. And there we are here in a good country that is working very much in this field, which is so important for the further development of the European Union. So let's try to be optimistic. Let's try to work for a well-working European Union with let's say, constructive criticism, and let's try to make our voice heard in these institutions, and by this, everything will go on fine. Thank you very much.
It was really very good to hear what you told us, and thank you very much, because you were talking from our heart, I think so.